Humanity had long been an integral part of the Galactic Council, a vast organization that spanned across the stars. For centuries, humans had played their role in galactic politics, negotiating trade deals, participating in diplomatic talks, and offering their military might when necessary. But as the years passed, something began to change. The once proud human leaders had started to see the cracks in the Council's foundation. The endless debates, the bureaucratic inefficiency, the rising tension between species, and most importantly, the Council's inability to protect its members from external threats, all of it led humanity to question their place within this vast organization. It was in the dark halls of the Earth government's chambers that the decision was made. The Council had become a puppet show, with each race pulling the strings, and humanity was tired of watching. The leaders of Earth, in a historic and unexpected move, had voted to leave the Galactic Council. The news spread across the galaxy, like wildfire. The decision to abandon the Council was not easy. Humanity had benefited greatly from the alliances forged over the years, and walking away meant facing uncertain challenges ahead. Yet, Earth's leaders were united in their belief that the time had come to chart their own path. The humans had endured enough. The Galactic Council had failed to act when their colonies were attacked by pirates. It had failed to enforce peace when the Quran Empire began to expand too far. Worst of all, it had failed to recognize the value of human ingenuity and innovation. Rylan Carter, a seasoned human diplomat who had spent years negotiating on behalf of Earth, stood at the heart of the decision. He had worked tirelessly to maintain the peace, to bridge the gap between the diverse species within the Council. But now he was tasked with delivering the message of humanity's withdrawal to the Council. The news was scheduled to be delivered during the Council's biannual summit. The leaders of the major species had gathered in a massive space station, orbiting the planet Zareth, where they would discuss pressing matters of the galaxy. The meeting was to be a chance for humanity to make their case for leaving the Council. But as Rylan prepared for his speech, he couldn't help but feel a sense of both relief and fear. The message had been drafted. It was clear, to the point, and unyielding. Humanity would no longer sit idly while the Council bickered and faltered. They would withdraw from all agreements, cease diplomatic efforts, and close off their borders. It was a statement of independence, and it was going to change everything. As Rylan boarded the transport ship that would take him to Zareth, he glanced out of the window at the vast expanse of space. The stars were beautiful, yet so far away. Humanity had once been a newcomer to this cosmic stage, and now they were about to step off of it entirely. The ship's docking bay opened, and Rylan made his way toward the Council chamber. The station was bustling with activity as various representatives of the Council's races shuffled to and from their designated areas. Among them were the towering Zalorians, whose 6 arms allowed them to multitask with ease. The sleek and intelligent Trilfer, a race of mind-linked beings who could communicate without speaking, and the proud Varkari, known for their warrior culture and their unwavering loyalty to the Council. But for the first time, Rylan felt like an outsider. His footsteps echoed in the massive hall as he walked alone, carrying the weight of a decision that would ripple across the galaxy. The Council chamber was grand. A circular room with towering windows that overlooked the vastness of space, it was designed to inspire awe and respect. At the center of the room, a massive holographic table flickered, displaying the galaxy's most recent diplomatic affairs. Rylan had seen it all before. He had sat at that table more times than he could count, negotiating with species who often viewed humans as little more than useful pawns in their games. But today, everything was different. As he took his seat, the Council leaders eyed him curiously. They had already received word of humanity's intentions, but no one expected a formal announcement just yet. The murmurs in the room grew louder as Rylan stood, his heart pounding in his chest. He cleared his throat and the room fell silent. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Rylan began, his voice calm but firm. "I stand before you today not as a representative of Earth, but as a messenger of humanity's decision, a decision that has not been taken lightly. The other leaders exchanged uncertain glances. They had expected a statement, but not like this. Rylan could feel their disbelief. We, the people of Earth, have made the difficult choice to sever all ties with the Galactic Council. We are withdrawing from all treaties, ending all trade agreements, and closing our borders to any future alliances. A ripple of shock spread across the room. Tirav, the representative from the Zalorian race, was the first to speak. You cannot be serious, Rylan. The Council has always been a symbol of unity among the races. Your departure will destabilize everything. Rylan met his gaze, his expression unwavering. The Council was never a true symbol of unity. It was a body of power-hungry races, fighting for their own agendas while the people suffered. Earth can no longer stand by while the galaxy spirals into chaos. You underestimate the importance of the Council, Tirav retorted, his voice tinged with anger. Without the Council, who will maintain order? Who will keep the peace? We will, Rylan said firmly. Humanity has always thrived on its own. We've fought wars, endured hardships, and built empires from nothing. We don't need the Council to survive. The room was now silent. The other representatives were staring at Rylan, processing his words. Rylan could see the uncertainty in their eyes. They had relied on humanity's strength for so long that the thought of losing them was terrifying. But there was something else in their gaze. Fear. They knew that without humanity, the balance of power in the galaxy would shift. Rylan turned to leave, his words lingering in the air. Humanity's withdrawal marks the beginning of a new era. We will no longer be your allies nor your enemies. We are walking away from this galaxy's petty games. Earth will thrive alone. As he stepped out of the chamber, the door slid shut behind him, and the quiet hum of the station seemed louder than ever. The weight of his words hung heavily in the air. He knew this was just the beginning. The Council might not accept humanity's decision, but it was already too late. The galaxy was about to change forever. The silence that followed Rylan's departure from the Galactic Council's chamber was deafening. As he walked down the corridors of the station, the weight of the decision he had just made pressed heavily on him. He could feel the eyes of the various council members on him, even though they were still in the meeting. But there was no turning back now. Humanity had made its choice. Earth's leaders had made their decision clear, and Rylan, though conflicted, had delivered it with all the conviction he could muster. It was a bold move, one that could change the entire course of galactic history. But as Rylan made his way to his shuttle, he couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in his gut. He knew what lay ahead would not be easy. The shuttle ride back to Earth was quiet, with only the hum of the ship's engines for company. Rylan leaned back in his seat, staring out of the small window at the stars beyond. Space had always fascinated him, the endless void, the countless unknowns. But today, it felt different. It felt like the calm before a storm. As Earth's ambassador, Rylan had spent years building relationships with the other races in the Council. Now all of that work seemed to be unraveling before his eyes. He had always believed that diplomacy was the key to peace, but now he was beginning to see that the Council had never been about peace. It had been about control, and humanity was no longer willing to play along. When the shuttle finally touched down on Earth, Rylan was greeted by Captain Mira, a rising star in the human fleet. She was one of the few people who shared Rylan's belief that humanity needed to stand on its own. She had long supported the idea of pulling away from the Council, and now that it had happened, she was ready to take charge of the next phase. Mira, Rylan said, as he stepped off the shuttle. We've done it. We've left the Council. Mira's eyes were sharp, her expression focused. I know, I've been following the news. It's all over the galactic network. It's not going to be easy, Rylan warned. The Council will fight back. They'll try to reassert control, and we may have made enemies in the process. Let them try, Mira replied with a determined smile. We'll be ready. Humanity doesn't need the Council to thrive. We've proven that time and time again. Rylan nodded, though doubt still lingered. He wasn't so sure. The Council had resources and power, things that humanity no longer had access to. But Mira was right about one thing. Earth had always been resourceful. They had always found a way to survive. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. The government officials worked to finalize humanity's withdrawal from the Council. Trade routes were severed, military alliances were dissolved, and the once powerful Earth fleet began to shift its focus from cooperation to self-reliance. Mira, now in charge of Earth's new military strategy, worked tirelessly to build a defense system that would protect Earth and its colonies from any retaliation the Council might attempt. Earth had long been known for its advanced technology, and now that they were no longer constrained by the Council's rules, they could push those innovations even further. One of the most critical projects was the development of a new type of warship. The humans had always excelled in military engineering, and now, with their independence secured, they had the freedom to build the most powerful fleet the galaxy had ever seen. The shipyards on Earth were in full operation, with hundreds of ships being constructed in secrecy. It was clear to Rylan and Mira that Earth's future lay in its ability to defend itself, not just from the Council, but from any threats that might arise in the wake of their departure. Despite their progress, there were moments of doubt. As the weeks passed, Rylan had to attend meetings with Earth's leaders to discuss their future. It was clear that the people were divided. Some supported the withdrawal, believing that humanity was stronger on its own. But others feared what would happen once they were isolated. Would they be able to hold their own in a galaxy that was quickly falling into chaos? "The galaxy is changing," Rylan said at one of the meetings. "But I believe we can shape that change. We don't need the Council's permission to thrive. We have the technology, the will, and the resilience to survive on our own." "But what if the Council retaliates?" one of the advisors asked. "They have a fleet that dwarfs our own. If we are isolated, we will be easy targets." Rylan's gaze hardened. "Humanity has always been underestimated. The Council thought they could control us, but we've shown them we won't be controlled. We may not have the numbers they do, but we have something they don't: our independence." Mira, who had been standing at the back of the room, stepped forward. "It's time to stop playing by their rules. Humanity is no longer a pawn in their game. We will forge our own path, and the galaxy will have no choice but to respect that." Her words were met with a quiet murmur of agreement. Rylan could see that the mood was shifting. The people were starting to believe in the vision he and Mira had shared for so long. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about taking control of their own destiny. The day after the meeting, Rylan found himself standing alone on the observation deck of the Earth Command Center, looking out over the vast expanse of space. He had always found peace in the stars, but now they seemed different. They were no longer a symbol of something unknown. They were a symbol of humanity's future. He had no illusions about what would happen next. The Council wouldn't let humanity's departure go unchallenged. The galaxy had always feared the rise of human power, and now that fear would only grow. But Rylan knew one thing for certain: humanity was stronger than they had ever been before. And soon, the galaxy would learn just how strong. The news of humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The Council's representatives were stunned by the audacity of Earth's decision. For years, the humans had been a vital part of the Council, contributing both military strength and technological advancements. But now, Earth was pulling away, declaring that it no longer needed the Council's approval or protection. The other species in the Council were left scrambling, unsure of what to do next. Back on Earth, Rylan Carter was hard at work overseeing the preparations for the inevitable retaliation. He knew that the Council would not let humanity's defection go unpunished. Earth's sudden break from the Council had left many powerful factions feeling threatened. The Varkari, known for their military might and fierce loyalty to the Council, were particularly angered. They would not take kindly to a species as strong as humanity abandoning them. Tarav, the Zilorian representative, was already calling for a military strike on Earth. The Council was not ready to lose its most valuable member without a fight. On Earth's military base, Captain Mira was preparing for the worst. The human fleet had been strengthened since the withdrawal, and now it would face its first true test. The space around Earth was buzzing with activity as ships were being readied. The humans had always been known for their creativity and ingenuity, and now they would need all of that to survive the storm that was coming. "We've trained for this moment," Mira said, addressing her officers in the war room. "But we must remember that this fight is not just for our survival. It is for the future of humanity. If we back down now, the Council will see us as weak. If we stand strong, we send a message to every species in this galaxy that we are not to be underestimated." Rylan stood beside Mira, watching the officers prepare for battle. He had seen the fear in their eyes, but he also saw something else: resolve. The decision to leave the Council had been a bold one, but it was the only choice humanity had if it was ever going to be truly free. Now the humans would face the consequences of their actions, and it was up to them to prove their worth. The Varkari fleet arrived in Earth's orbit 2 days later, their ships a dark, intimidating presence in the sky. Thousands of warships filled the space above Earth, blocking out the stars. The human fleet stood ready, but Mira knew they were outnumbered. The Varkari had a reputation for being ruthless, and they would not hesitate to strike. But Mira was determined to make them think twice. "Captain, the Varkari are hailing us," one of the officers reported. "They say they have come to restore order and that we must surrender or face the consequences." Mira's eyes narrowed. She knew this was only the beginning. The Varkari were trying to intimidate them, but she wasn't about to back down. She walked to the comm station and activated the channel to the Varkari fleet. "This is Captain Mira of Earth. I speak for the people of Earth when I say that we will not surrender. We left the Council because we believe in our right to decide our own future. You can either turn back now, or you can face us in battle. The choice is yours." The Varkari leader, a towering figure known as Rashar, appeared on the screen. His piercing eyes and cold expression sent a shiver down Mira's spine. He was known for being brutal in battle, and it was clear he saw humanity's defection as a challenge to his authority. "You speak of freedom, human," Rashar's voice rumbled. "But what is freedom without strength? You are nothing without the Council. And if you think you can stand against the might of the Varkari, you are sorely mistaken. We will crush you, and all who follow you." Mira stood her ground, unflinching. "We have the strength to fight for our freedom, Rashar, and we won't stop until we've earned the respect of every species in this galaxy." The screen flickered as Rashar's face disappeared. Mira turned to Rylan, who had been silent throughout the exchange. He placed a hand on her shoulder, offering his support without words. He knew this battle was just as much about humanity's future as it was about defending their dignity. "We fight now," Rylan said softly. "And we fight to win." The first shots were fired at dawn. The Varkari fleet launched a full-scale assault on Earth's defenses, their warships unleashing a barrage of laser fire. But the humans were ready. Earth's fleet responded quickly, their ships moving with precision and speed. Humanity's smaller fleet, though outnumbered, had one advantage. Their ships were faster and more agile, able to maneuver around the Varkari's heavier, more cumbersome vessels. Mira watched the battle unfold from the command deck, her heart pounding in her chest. The human ships were outclassed in firepower, but their superior tactics made up for it. They fought like a team, coordinating strikes and dodging attacks with near-perfect synchronization. For the first time in years, the humans were fighting for something bigger than themselves. They were fighting for their right to exist on their own terms. As the battle raged on, Rylan remained on the comms, coordinating with various human fleets across the system. He knew that Earth could not sustain a prolonged conflict with the Varkari without reinforcements, but he also knew that this battle was about sending a message that humanity would not be bullied, that they would not be controlled. The turning point came when Mira's fleet managed to disable one of the Varkari's largest ships. It was a risky move, but it paid off. The Varkari, thrown off balance, began to retreat. Mira didn't waste a moment. She ordered her fleet to press the attack, and within hours, the Varkari had been forced to retreat from Earth's orbit. The battle had been won, but Rylan knew that this was just the beginning. The Varkari fleet had been broken, but the Council was still out there, and other factions would surely take their place. Humanity had made its mark on the galaxy, but the true test was yet to come. The galaxy would watch, and the real war for independence had only just begun. The victory over the Varkari fleet had been a significant one for humanity, but the victory was bittersweet. While Earth's defense had proven successful, the galaxy's eyes were now focused on what would happen next. The Varkari had retreated, but their humiliation lingered. The Council was now fully aware that humanity had no intention of backing down, and they were not the only ones watching closely. As the weeks passed, rumors began to spread through the galaxy. Many races that had once been loyal to the Galactic Council started to question their alliances. The Scifi, a species known for their sharp intellect and cunning, had long felt like they were being overshadowed by the Council's decision-making. They had suffered under the Council's rule, especially when it came to trade restrictions that limited their economy. They were not the only species to feel this way. Others, like the Garathians, were growing tired of the constant political battles that always seemed to favor the larger, more powerful races. Captain Mira and Rylan sat in a command room deep inside Earth's military base, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. They knew that the battle with the Varkari was only one chapter in a larger story. While the humans had proven their might, the galaxy was beginning to change in ways no one could have predicted. The Galactic Council was weakening, and those who had supported humanity's decision to withdraw were starting to show their support. "We need to move quickly," Mira said, her voice low but determined. "The Scifi are reaching out to us. They're interested in forming an alliance." Rylan looked up from the data screen in front of him. "An alliance? With us?" Mira nodded. "They're not the only ones. We've received messages from the Garathians, and even the Calorians are considering their options. The Council's failure to keep the peace is making many races reconsider their loyalty. The Scifi are just the first of many." Rylan leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. The idea of forming alliances with other races was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it could strengthen humanity's position in the galaxy. On the other hand, it could draw them into more conflict, and they were already facing a hostile council. "Don't like the idea of getting involved with these factions, Mira," Rylan said quietly. "We've fought for our independence, but now we could be getting pulled into someone else's war." Mira looked at him, her expression hardening. "The galaxy isn't a peaceful place, Rylan. Whether we like it or not, we're going to have to make choices. If we don't take action now, the vacuum left by the Council could be filled with far worse powers." Rylan nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of the situation. He had always believed in humanity's ability to stand on its own, but the reality of the galaxy's power dynamics was beginning to set in. Humanity had shown strength in battle, but now they had to prove that they could handle the politics of galactic diplomacy. That afternoon, a delegation from the Scifi arrived on Earth's military base. Their ships hovered gracefully in Earth's orbit, sleek and elegant with the telltale markings of the Scifi race. They were an intelligent species known for their advanced technology and strategic thinking. The leader of the delegation, High Commander Valira, was a tall, imposing figure, her silver skin gleaming under the artificial lights as she stepped into the briefing room. "Captain Mira, Rylan," Valira said, her voice calm and steady. "I have come to discuss an alliance between our people." Mira stood up, extending a hand in greeting. "We're honored by your visit, Commander Valira. Earth has long respected the Scifi. We've heard of your struggles under the Council." Valira nodded, her eyes filled with both regret and resolve. "The Galactic Council has failed us. They have sought to control us, to limit our freedom. We are tired of being held back. We see that humanity is strong, and we believe an alliance with your people could offer a new path forward for both of us." Rylan studied the Scifi leader carefully. He knew this was not an offer made lightly. The Scifi were not a race to be underestimated. If they were reaching out to humanity, it meant they saw something valuable in Earth's newfound independence. "What exactly are you offering?" Rylan asked, his voice steady. Valira's gaze was unwavering. "We offer our support in rebuilding the galaxy. Together we can create a new order. one that does not bow to the whims of the Galactic Council. Our combined strength, knowledge, and resources will ensure that no one can threaten us again. Mira exchanged a glance with Rylan. The offer was tempting. It was the opportunity to build something new, something that could rival the Council's influence. But Mira knew that alliances like this came with their own costs. Humanity had fought to escape the Council's control. Now they would have to be careful not to fall into a different kind of trap. "What are you asking of us?" Mira asked, her voice firm. Valera's expression remained unreadable. "We are asking for mutual defense. If the Varkari or any other power chooses to retaliate, we will fight alongside you. But there is more. The Sakari hold control over several key trade routes that the Council once used to maintain their hold on the galaxy. We can offer you access to those routes, but only if we are allies." Ryland considered the proposal carefully. The trade routes could be a valuable asset to humanity, especially as they worked to establish their independence. But he couldn't shake the feeling that the Sakari were not offering this alliance out of the goodness of their hearts. They had their own goals, their own ambitions. "Let me be clear," Ryland said, his voice sharp. "Humanity's primary concern is its independence. We will not allow ourselves to be controlled again, even by an ally. If we form this alliance, it must be based on equality. We are not interested in being anyone's pawn." Valera smiled, her sharp eyes glinting. "I would expect nothing less. Rylan, the Sakari have no interest in domination, but we believe that together we can create a new order, one that will ensure peace and prosperity for all races. The Council is dead. It is time for something new." After the meeting, Rylan and Mira walked through the hallways of the base, both deep in thought. The Sakari were a powerful ally, but they weren't the only species looking to fill the power vacuum left by the Council's collapse. The galaxy was on the brink of chaos, and humanity had to be careful. They could not afford to make the wrong choice. "This could be our chance to reshape the galaxy," Mira said quietly, her voice filled with determination. "But we have to be careful. We can't let anyone control us again. We've fought too hard for our freedom." Rylan nodded, his mind spinning. "The Sakari offer strength, but it's still a gamble. We have to be prepared for whatever comes next." The future of humanity hung in the balance, and with the galaxy in turmoil, every decision was more important than ever. But Rylan knew one thing for certain. Humanity would not go back to the way things were. No matter what alliances they formed, no matter who they fought alongside, Earth would remain in control of its own destiny. The galaxy was in chaos. The Galactic Council, once the pillar of intergalactic diplomacy, was beginning to crumble under the weight of its own failures. Humanity's withdrawal had shaken the foundation of the Council, and now the other species were starting to question everything. The once mighty Council, built on the idea of unity among the stars, was showing cracks that were impossible to ignore. Back on Earth, Ryland Carter and Captain Mira watched as the news poured in from all over the galaxy. The Sakari had officially joined humanity's cause, and other factions were starting to follow suit. The Garathians, known for their warrior culture, had agreed to a non-aggression pact with Earth, and the Calorians were preparing to send an ambassador to discuss trade deals. Rylan knew that humanity was no longer a small, insignificant player in the galaxy. Earth was now a central force, and the Council was scrambling to keep its grip on power. "The Council is falling apart," Mira said as she scanned the latest reports. "I can feel the shift, Rylan. The galaxy is looking to us for leadership." Rylan sat back in his chair, his mind racing. "The Council's collapse isn't just about power," he said, his voice calm but filled with a quiet intensity. "It's about the idea of unity. The Council held the galaxy together, even if that unity was built on lies and manipulation. With humanity's departure, the whole structure is starting to unravel, and now everyone is looking for a new leader." Mira nodded. "And that leader could be us." It had been a month since humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, and the situation had evolved far beyond their expectations. The galaxy's reaction had been unpredictable. Some factions, like the Varkari, had immediately retaliated, hoping to restore the status quo. But now the Varkari were retreating, humiliated by their defeat in the first major battle with humanity's fleet. The Varkari fleet had suffered significant losses, and it had become clear that they were no longer the unstoppable force they once were. But there were other forces at play. The Rolokians, a race of shadowy diplomats known for their covert operations, were stirring in the background. They had remained silent since humanity's withdrawal, but Rylan knew that silence often meant something darker was brewing. The Rolokians had long been known to play both sides of every conflict, and Rylan was certain they were now plotting their next move. As the news continued to come in, the full scope of the Council's collapse became more evident. The Jathari, an ancient race known for their wisdom and technological prowess, had called for an emergency summit of all remaining council members. The summit was to be held on Terragor, an ancient world once home to the council's founders. The Jathari believed that this summit could salvage what was left of the council, but it was clear to everyone that the days of the Galactic Council were numbered. The summit, Rylan said, turning to Mira, it's a last-ditch effort to hold everything together, but it's not going to work. The council is too fractured. Mira looked thoughtful. The galaxy is looking for stability, Rylan. They need someone to fill the void the council's collapse has left behind. And humanity is in a perfect position to lead. Rylan ran a hand through his hair. We've made our stand, but we can't lead if we're not united. The galaxy is in turmoil, Mira. There's no way we can rebuild this entire system alone. Mira walked over to the window, gazing out at the stars. Maybe we don't have to rebuild it alone. We have allies now. And the galaxy is starting to see that Earth has the strength to protect its own interests. This is our chance to reshape the future. Rylan joined her by the window. The stars stretched out in front of them, vast and endless. He could feel the weight of their choices pressing down on him. Humanity had taken a bold step, but they couldn't afford to be reckless. The galaxy was in flux, and every decision would have consequences. There's a summit on Terragor, Rylan said. The Council's last chance at survival. We need to be there. Mira raised an eyebrow. You want to join the Council's final meeting? It's not about the Council, Rylan replied. It's about the galaxy. If we don't show up, we risk letting the galaxy fall into chaos. The Jathari won't give up their influence easily, and there are too many factions waiting for an opening. Mira considered this for a moment. And if we go, we're there as representatives of Earth, not as part of the Council. Rylan nodded. Exactly. We need to be seen as leaders of something new. The galaxy doesn't need the Council anymore, but they still need guidance. If humanity can step up now, we can shape the galaxy's future. The two of them stood in silence for a few moments, staring at the stars. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer up for debate. They had proven their strength, their resolve, and now they had to decide what kind of future they wanted to create. The next week, Rylan and Mira boarded a shuttle to Terragor. The summit was scheduled to begin in 3 days, and they were ready to make their mark. Earth's fleet had been mobilized, prepared to defend their interests, but they knew the real battle would be fought with words. The other races were all vying for control, and the Jathari were the last bastion of authority. But Rylan had no intention of letting them hold on to their old power. When they arrived on Terragor, the atmosphere was tense. The summit hall was filled with representatives from the remaining council races, each one eyeing the others with suspicion. The Jathari leader Alaron stood at the head of the room, his long robes flowing as he addressed the crowd. We are gathered here to discuss the future of the galaxy, Alaron began, his voice commanding. The Galactic Council has been shaken to its core by recent events, and now we must decide what comes next. We must rebuild, or we risk total collapse. Rylan stood at the back of the room watching the proceedings. He knew that this was their moment. The galaxy was watching, waiting for someone to take charge. The Council may have failed, but that didn't mean the galaxy was beyond saving. Humanity had the strength to rebuild, and this was their time to show it. Mira leaned in close to Rylan. "It's time to speak up, Rylan. They're waiting for a leader." Rylan took a deep breath, stepping forward into the spotlight. The room fell silent as he addressed the assembly. "The galaxy does not need another council," he said, his voice steady and clear. "It needs a new beginning, and that beginning starts with us, humanity. We have the strength, the resolve, and the vision to lead, but we can't do it alone. The future belongs to those who are willing to stand together." The room was still, and Rylan could feel the weight of his words sinking in. The future of the galaxy was uncertain, but humanity was ready to take control. The summit on Terragor had ended in silence, but the air was thick with unspoken words. Rylan stood at the center of the hall, his mind racing as he looked at the faces around him. The representatives of the remaining council races, the ones who had not abandoned the crumbling structure, sat in stunned silence. For the first time, the humans had stood their ground, speaking not as a part of the Galactic Council, but as leaders of a new future. It had taken all of Rylan's resolve to speak those words that rejected the past and embraced a new path forward. And it wasn't just rhetoric. Humanity's actions would need to back up every statement he had made. Mira stood beside him, her sharp eyes scanning the room. Her silent support was a reminder that this was not just about words, it was about action. "The Jathari were not happy with that speech," Mira said quietly, leaning in so only Rylan could hear. Rylan gave a slight nod. "No, but they heard us. They can't ignore humanity anymore. We've proven that we can stand on our own, that we are more than just a cog in the machine of the Council." The Jathari, though wise and influential, had long been the architects of the Galactic Council. Their desire to restore order was understandable, but it was clear that their way of maintaining power had only led to more conflict. The speech had been a challenge, a declaration that humanity would no longer be bound by the old ways of thinking. The Council was gone, and now something new had to take its place. Outside, on the surface of Terragor, humanity's ships were in orbit, ready to defend Earth and its allies from any threats. The political power on the station was shifting, but Rylan knew the galaxy was far from settled. The Council's fall had left a void, and every species was scrambling to fill it. Some were willing to bend the knee, eager to secure alliances with the rising human power, while others were plotting in the shadows, unwilling to let go of the old ways. "Do you think they'll agree to our proposal?" Mira asked, turning to Rylan with a look of determination in her eyes. "They'll have to," Rylan replied. "We've given them a choice: join us and build a new future, or continue to fight for the old one and risk total collapse. I believe most will choose the first option." Mira smiled slightly. "A bold move. We've made our intentions clear, but I think we might be underestimating just how badly the old guard wants to keep their power." Rylan took a deep breath, staring out into the distance. The stars above seemed endless, and yet humanity's future was now in their own hands. What had once been a fragile planet on the edge of a vast, chaotic galaxy had now become a beacon of hope for those who sought something different, something better. Over the next few weeks, Rylan and Mira worked tirelessly to solidify their position. The message humanity had sent at the summit had reverberated across the galaxy. The Sakari and Garathians had formally signed agreements with Earth, establishing economic and military pacts. Even the Calorians, long known for their neutrality, had approached humanity for trade deals. For the first time in centuries, humans were not following someone else's lead. They were setting the course themselves. Despite the positive reception from many factions, there were still those who viewed humanity's rise with suspicion. The Rylokians, in particular, had remained silent since the summit, their true intentions still hidden. The Varkari, though defeated, had not forgotten their humiliation. Rylan knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, and they could not afford to relax, not when the galaxy's balance of power was still so fragile. But Rylan believed in humanity's strength. Earth's people had always adapted to adversity. From the early days of exploration to the colonization of distant planets, humans had shown time and time again that they could survive and thrive against the odds. Now, as leaders of a new, galactic order, humanity would have to prove it once again. Back on Earth, a great assembly was being held to celebrate their new alliances and discuss the path forward. Leaders from the Sakari, Garathians, and other factions had gathered to discuss trade, defense, and cooperation. The feeling in the air was one of hope, but also uncertainty. Earth had made its stand, but the galaxy was still a complex place. Rylan and Mira entered the hall. They were met with applause. Earth's people had embraced their newfound role as leaders, and it was clear that the galaxy's other races were beginning to accept humanity's place in this new order. "Thank you, everyone, for being here," Rylan began, stepping up to the podium. "Today marks the beginning of a new era for humanity. We have spent too long looking to others for approval, for guidance, but no more. We are here to take our rightful place as leaders, not just of Earth, but of the future of the galaxy. We stand together with our allies, and together, we will rebuild what was lost." The crowd erupted into applause again, but Rylan could see the uncertainty in some of their eyes. Not everyone was as confident as he was about humanity's rise to power. There were still questions about whether the new alliances would hold, about whether the galaxy would accept the humans as true leaders. Mira stepped forward, her presence commanding. "The future is never certain, but we will face it head-on together. Humanity has always been defined by its resilience, and now, more than ever, we will prove that we can build something better. Something that is not built on the old ways of the Galactic Council, but something that is rooted in unity and respect for all races. Our strength lies not in our power, but in our ability to adapt, to learn, and to grow." Her words resonated through the hall, and Rylan could feel the energy shift. It wasn't just the humans who were beginning to believe in this new future, it was the other races too. The alliances they had formed were more than just political agreements. They were a commitment to something greater than the sum of their parts. The following days were spent establishing new systems of cooperation. Humanity, alongside their new allies, began to dismantle the old systems of the Galactic Council, replacing them with a more decentralized structure that allowed each race to have a voice. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Rylan and Mira continued to lead the charge, working tirelessly to ensure that the path they had chosen would be one of peace and prosperity, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. They knew that the road ahead would be difficult, that there would be those who would resist the changes, but they were prepared. Humanity had abandoned the Galactic Council, but in doing so, they had created something new, a chance for the galaxy to rebuild, to move forward, and to embrace a future where every race had the opportunity to thrive. And for the first time in history, humanity was no longer looking up to the stars, waiting for someone else to lead them. They were reaching out, ready to take their place among the stars, not as followers but as leaders.